So you want to know the best teams and equipment so you can optimally build the new Legends Limited Fusion Zamasu. But first, you gotta know how to use him. This unit here is a red melee type, so consider that when building him. Very strike oriented, but by no means lacks in the defensive department. Zamasu is what we'd like to call a genius of adaptation, Mahoraga if you will. He's built with an attack gauge and a sustained damage gauge, and the way these two switch between each other is by him taking attacks, which would be the sustained damage type, it would immediately switch. But then when he starts pressing cards and goes on the offensive, it immediately switches to the attack gauge. He gains benefits when each of the gauges fill, he debuffs the opponents a lot and can snowball his damage, meaning that every time he's pressing an arts card, he will be building quite a bit of damage inflicted. So for high star users, you can build him more offensively, but on the lower star end, you might want to consider the defenses very clearly. Let's get into this now. So the first team we're going to dive into is Future. Future has a few options, and just so you know, I'll get into bench options and leader slot options later in this video, as well as the equipment. But right now, you can see my Future team isn't looking too great, but that's only because I don't actually have the Goku Black Rose that released in the festival, and the leader slot option would be the Legends Limited Fusion Zamasu that we're talking about in this video. Then of course, Green Vegito is there in the middle. Those are 3 units you could run together. These aren't the only 3 you can run, but they're 3 that I think would be pretty good. Vegito to ignore counters. Rose is going to have his endurance, and he's also going to have the buff cancellation, which is going to be very valuable. And just so no purples come back to damage Vegito, you could actually have the yellow there, which would be nice as well. Survivability is important to a degree, so Rose could be useful in that department. But let's look at what other options we got. So go to character list, and you want to actually turn this Legends Limited option off, and you want to go ahead, Sparking Ultra character tag, and then find the tag that you want to talk about or apply. So Future here is the one that we're talking about. Gonna press OK again, then it brings up all the Future units, and make sure you also have these 2 off so it shows you all or both of them on. So yeah, I'm just gonna bring up some characters that I think are going to be worthwhile using if you do have them, but obviously some are better than others. So Cell and Frieza, if you got them at a higher star, so I say maybe 9 and above, they can actually be quite valuable if you want them to compete with the Legends Limited and Ultra. Looking at the green, we got here Rose. Rose is very nice with Zenkai buffs. So if you're going to run him, you might want to go double green and Zenkai buff them all, and then add the red Fusion Zamasu in addition. Vegito is already on the team, which you saw. The rest of the greens are not great, but if you did want to consider somebody, which I'll bring up later, this is just a HP buff. But yeah, it's somebody important, especially specifically for Future. Going into the purples are not great, I'm not going to lie. I wouldn't run one. Future purples are not the best, but if you did want to, this is your best option, and that's saying something, but he can actually be a good addition. Going into the yellows, I spoke about the Rose I don't have already, but besides from that, the rest of the yellows are pretty bad. Going into the reds, we also have not best options considering we're going to be running a red, but if you wanted to go for hella Zenkai buffs, Corrupted Zamasu, Ultra Vegito Blue could be good. I've seen some people run this red Zamasu just because he has endurance and hope that the tag droids get a Zenkai because they will be immaculate. Then going into units I don't have, so I didn't mention Trunks and Gohan. Trunks and Gohan are actually going to be good for that survivability, and they're much better than the Rose because they have a second life. So even a special beam cannon from Beast Gohan isn't going to take them out completely. They will just, you know, hit the succession mechanic. This free-to-play 18 would only be especially good if you're running her with the new, I said free-to-play 18. This 1% sparking 18 she dropped with the Gohan and Trunks would be good only if you're running her alongside a 17, so you'd have to use the new 1% sparking 17 or somebody else, but there isn't somebody else. So you'd be running the yellow, a purple, and then your third would be the Legends Limited Fusion Zamasu, and it'd also be Powerful Opponent, which actually works out. So that's another team that you could run. Then you'd have 2 endurance nullification units, which is actually a very good team to run. Obviously you have to see how they work, but the 18 here had good rapport. It's just that there's no 17 to accompany her, so it's very likely that the new 17 that's coming along is going to be actually good. So shout out to 18 here, and obviously that would work well with Legend Limited Fusions Zamasu. That's the first team we're discussing. Legends Limited. For Legends Limited Fusions Zamasu, we got Future. Now, unironically, this is God Key, but it's exactly the same team. The bench would just be different going forward, but that's just because I opted in to show you the same Future units. But that's just for jokes, you know. I already explained it in the previous segment. Vegeta Blue there to ignore counters. Goku Black there, he's going to transform into Rose. I'm obviously using this guy as a placeholder. It's not the actual one. I don't have the actual one. But you know. One thing I will point out though, is very important to note. These units, so you see Vegeta Blue and the new Rose, they do buff God Ki, but they only have God Ki once they transform. That's something that might take a factor for equipments, because post-transformation, Vegeta Blue isn't God Ki, so some equipments might actually apply to him. It's annoying that it works like that, but it does. So just bear that in mind when you're building a team. Legends Limited Fusions Master would be at the top. Now let's go into the other options that we have. So we're going to do the same thing. Filter, take off the future one, find God Ki, okay. And now we're going to see all the God Ki options. So looking at the blues, out of these ones here, I wouldn't run any. They're not worth it, honestly. Looking at the greens, God Goku, the new one, well, the one that released in the 6th anniversary, he's actually amazing if you run his plat. And I spoke about Rose earlier, but just be wary of Rose. I don't think he actually buffs God Ki, does he? Yeah, he doesn't. He's strictly future and powerful opponents. So be wary of that based on your other teammates. The other greens are pretty whack. Going into the purples, Blue Bros are going to be your best option, and even then they're not the greatest, but they're solid. And then I already mentioned the Vegeta when I spoke about future. Going into yellow, we have LFGB with his Zenkai. He's actually phenomenal. I've been using him consistently. He would be your best option. I wouldn't recommend anybody else, but maybe the likes of Ultra UI and Fusing GB, but you'd have to really Zenkai buff those two. And then in the red department, maybe Shin, if you're not just running LF Fusion Zamasu. Shin could actually be valuable, and Corrupted Zamasu. UVB with hella Zenkai boss, but then you'd be leaning more in the fusion department anyway. And we've got God Goku here, I mentioned. I'm only saying him again because I don't have him. So yeah, those are the characters that I think would be actually useful in God Ki. God Ki obviously has, well, from appearance, less valuable or less of a roster of characters that could be at the top end of the game, but it's still a very good team, so do not sleep on it. Right, so here we got powerful opponents, which is going to be the third and final team that I suggest you run if you do want to run Legends Limited Fusions Zamasu. I've got Ultra Turles. It's Hero Turles, but he's just a placeholder for Ultra Turles. He would be the leader slot option. Mainly you want him on the leader slot because his ultra ability, if you don't want him to lose 30%, because his ultra ability is based on sagas from the movies. So if he's put him run with powerful opponents and they're not sagas from the movies, he'd be losing 5%, 5%, 5%. If he's leader slotted, he can get the full 30%. But if there's no other sagas from the movies members, even if they are powerful opponents, they need to be sagas from the movies as well. He'll be missing out a bunch of 5% all the way to 30%. So yeah, we got the Goku Black. This obviously isn't the one, but the one that transforms, you know, that dropped in the festival. He was good in endurance, so you got double survivability, and then the Legends Limited Fusions of Master will be your third option. Of course, these aren't the only contenders that you can run, so let's look at the character list so we can bring out everybody available. So Sparking Ultra, go to character tag, and then you want to find the one you're dealing with, powerful opponent, okay. And then we look at what we have. So we're looking at the blues. The blues, from the ones I have, there'll be some at the bottom. A lot at the bottom I don't have actually, but the blues on the screen right now, none of these guys are good, so I wouldn't consider using any of them. I already spoke about Turles though. I just don't have him, so he's not there at the top. Going into the green, Rose could be a good option. He actually does buff powerful opponent in his Z ability, and outside of that, I'd say that's pretty much it. Evil Majin Buu, dated, so I wouldn't recommend, but the rest of the greens on the screen right now are not really up to par. Going into the purples, potentially Golden Frieza, only because he has comeback, but it's not the most optimal option, especially since yellows are still going to be used consistently. But Zamasu makes it easier to run a purple. Looking at the yellows, maybe if you have a high star Super Baby 2, it's basically like having 2 Legends Limited Fusions Zamasus, but I'm saying 9 stars and above to make Super Baby 2 look good. I'd say that's about it though. The rest of the yellows on the screen are not great. Then going into the reds, I've spoke about a couple. Corrupted Zamasu, but we're already running Legends Limited Zamasu, Fusion Zamasu, so bear that in mind. And I'd say that's about it, to be honest, in terms of the powerful opponent reds. Now let's look at some I don't have. So we got the Goku Black, who I already showed. We've got Turles, who I already showed and spoke about. Garlic Jr., if you have him at like 9 stars and above, he could actually be a very good contender. Build him heavily defensive, potentially Omega Shenron, but I wouldn't recommend. And then I already spoke about it on Future, but Android 18, if you're running also Android 17, the new one, the 1%, I believe he's purple, they would be a good addition together because they nullify endurance permanently, which is great. And then outside of that, I wouldn't really recommend anybody else. It'd be holding you back to some degree. So that's the third team. We've got powerful opponents. It's actually a good team as well, but you need to have the core pieces to make it work. Lesser options here, I feel, as well. Now we're going to be going into some leader slot options. Just note with the leader slot options, a lot of them will mess up your equipment synergy, so you might not want to opt in for them, but depending on how you're running your team, these guys are good enough to be on that leader slot and still bring you results. Just bear in mind the equipments might not blend as perfectly. So the first one here, we got Ultra Margin Vegeta. I'm just going to go through them. The second one here, I already mentioned some of these, Ultra Turles. The next one here, we got Ultra Beast Gohan. That should go without saying. The next one here, Ultra Goku Black, I mentioned him already. Just bear in mind he might need some Zenkai buffs or stars depending on how high you have him. Vegito Blue here fits on his teams perfectly, but depending on how you wanted to build the rest of the team. Super Saiyan 2 / Super Saiyan 3 Goku could also be a contender considering the red Zamasu is melee orientated. We've got Diamond Goku. Having a red is just super valuable, especially with Ultra Margin Vegeta and Beast Gohan. Gotenks for the same reason, but this fusion Zamasu is also a fusion warrior, so bear that in mind with the synergy. It could actually work way more effectively. You just have to change the equipments to some way. And then we've got God Goku here. He's God Key, so he will mesh actually pretty well, also being a melee type. And being green, he protects the red fusion Zamasu from blues, even though fusion Zamasu will be types neutral sustained. This guy could actually put fear in a lot of those blues hearts that are going to be run. But yeah, that's the bulk for the leader slot options I recommend. Now we're getting into some bench options. These bench options, some of them are Zenkai buffers, some of them just have good Z abilities, so as in HP buffers, and I'll get into that. So Zamasu here, he's a Zenkai buffer, which is going to be good for obviously fusion Zamasu. We got here a Zenkai buffer as well, Zenkai buffer. Here we got another Zenkai buffer. And now we're done with the Zenkai buffers. We got some HP buffers, and now these guys are actually going to be important, especially if you're running on the lower end. So we got God Goku for God Key, we got Mai here for Future, and we got Yellow Broly for Powerful Opponent. But this guy also Zenkai buffs Powerful Opponent, which is good to know. So it's not just going to be that, you know, HP buff, but he could also Zenkai buff a yellow Powerful Opponent that you're running. This is just a HP buff, no Zenkai, and just a HP buff, no Zenkai. But these are all Zenkai buffers that you could have for Legends Limited Fusion Zamasu, and they would work. There is some others, but they're more like Fusion Warrior orientated, so Super Gogeta and Red Vegito, base free-to-play Vegito, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend them unless you're trying to run a Fusion Warrior team, which I don't think is the most optimal, especially in comparison to these teams. It's meant to be a best teams and equipments. So now we're getting into equipment. I'm actually going to show a bunch, and I think there's a bunch of options, specifically because he's a red Fusion Warrior, God Key, Future, Powerful Opponent, Regeneration, a bunch of tags. And with this, there'll be a lot of equipments that are similar, but I'm going to show a lot in case you don't have everyone that I have. You might not want to grind everything. This one here, Not If I Stop You, Strike Defense, Blast Defense, Strike Attack, Base Blast Attack. It's like a mix of everything just for Future, Vegito Blue on the front, and you can get this from Ultimate Equipment Collection for normal Future. This one is a pure, and specifically if you're running a Super Saiyan God battle member, so Super Saiyan God Goku would be the only one. If you don't understand what pure is, pure damage is essentially a multiplier. It's easily thought of as a multiplier, so you can just understand it. Think of base strike attack and base blast attack as just the base number. And if you have that base number already big and then you put a multiplier onto that number, it's really, really good. It's going to get a lot of damage. So what you'd like to do is have two equipments with a lot of base and then one pure equipment, and that would make it go up. So the multiplier is necessary, but you don't need more multipliers than the base number. Always bear that in mind. But yeah, HP, Blast Attack, and Strike Attack, and it's for God Key or sagas from the movies. In this case, Zamasu is God Key, and you can get this from the Dual Coin Exchange Shop. This one here, your Divine Power is not looking so wondrous now. base strike and blast defense, strike attack, but HP and ultimate damage specifically for Fusion Warrior Red, which Legends Limited Zamasu is. And you can see you can get it from the Ultimate Equipment Collection, normal, Fusion Warrior, and Red. This one here, more so for my low star warriors, I set on a Fearsome Foe. Special move and ultimate damage to again offensive power on the big attacks, but there's also defenses. Now defenses are very valuable, but you need to be running 3 God Key members to get the pure defenses here. You also get some strike attack base out of the slot 2 and slot 3, but the defenses are what you're looking for so that Zamasu can tank more, especially since he has the adaptation gene. He can go between offensive and defensive, which is nice. It will help you out a bunch. You can get this from the Ultimate Equipment Collection, normal God Key. This is a pure equipment here for the powerful opponent guys. Special move, ultimate damage on the first slot, big attacks, but then you get offenses on the second and the third slot, pure strike, pure blast, while also getting defenses, base strike defense, base blast defense. Powerful opponent at the bottom, and you can get this from the dual coin exchange shop. This one here also pushing the defensive idea, base blast defense, base strike defense, and you also get HP and health restoration, which is nice. Future Trunks Saga, which will fit on Fusion Zamasu, and you can get this from the Ultimate Equipment Collection, normal Future Trunks Saga S. Just in case you get the bright idea to run Fusion Warriors, I guess I should show this. Give Up Boo, it's just for Fusion Warriors, base strike defense, base blast defense, but you also get pure strike and pure blast offense. The base critical at the top is pretty useless though. Dual coin exchange shop to get this one. This is another great one. Awaken Bestowed Hope. You see a special move damage, health restoration on the first slot, which is amazing. Base strike attack, but you can also get blast attack, but for Zamasu you're going to want strike attack, and you can get the base health here. Now if you ever want to find a certain equipment, right, you go to equipment here, then what you want to do is press archive, and you want to change this filter to your liking. So in this case we're looking for a future equipment, the one that had Bestowed Hope. Find the future tag if my eyes will work right now. There we go. And you can see the awakened one is here, but we need the unawakened version, because to get this, it's only the memory which will allow you to awaken it. You get this from the Zenkai Ultra Space Time Rush shop, but you're going to need a bunch of the unawakened ones to awaken it into the awakened version. Then you see this one is pretty crappy, but you get this from the Equipment Medal Exchange shop. I wouldn't recommend running this one, but it can give you that extra strike damage if you want to go pure strike oriented. I wouldn't recommend it though, but if you want to just have that fun, you get way more strike damage out of this pure, but you lose out on how those other platinum pures have the extra blast pure as well. You're only getting strike, but it is more. So with those other ones, you would get maybe 12% or 13%. This, if you have 3 future members, you will get a whopping 18%. So it's a lot more, but you lose out on the blast pure. But if your team's already strike fixated, maybe it doesn't make a difference to you. This is the awakened version, and you can get the memory from the Zenkai Ultra Space Time Rush shop, but you're going to need the unawakened version, and the unawakened version is not great, so don't use it. But you want to use it so that you can get to the awakened state, so you can get from the normal future, the another future, the Android Menace, and the Equipment Medal Exchange shop. I've showed a lot, but this one here is actually elite. Awaken, Behold My Perfect Divinity. Base strike defense, base blast defense, health restoration, strike attack, and special move. All of this on one equipment. It's a very good equipment. You get the memory from the Zenkai Ultra Space Time Rush shop, and I'm sure you've caught on by now. You're going to need the unawakened version. It's really crappy, so you only want to awaken it and use that version. And then you can get this unawakened version from the Equipment Medal Exchange shop. And this is the last one I'm going to show you for the video. Try not to do anything too crazy. It's the newest future pure equipment, and you can see they've actually increased the number for future characters. So future's meant to be a good team this year. You can see you're getting 13.5 when usually these equipments only give you 12%. So that's really nice. You get blast attack base and strike attack base while getting defenses on the first slot for future. Just make sure you're running 3 future members to capitalize on this 13.5, and you can get this from the dual coin exchange shop. But yeah man, that's going to be the end of the video. I did my best to give you guys the best teams equipment. You got bench, leader slot options. I gave you everything that you could need to build a team in the likeliness of your account, because you're not going to have everything I have, and you even saw I have a lot of missing things, but you might have things that I don't have, which allows you to make a better team than I can. But hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. If you haven't already, make sure to press that subscribe button. We're on this grind to 200,000 subscribers. I appreciate you guys for watching, man. My name is Zakashi, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one, man.